Welcome to Spells and Spoilers, the podcast where we dive into all things supernatural. This season, we're starting with Charmed, so grab your spellbook and your popcorn, and let's get magical. Welcome to Spells and Spoilers, a rewatch and reread podcast. I'm Aleacia.
And I'm Elizabeth. This season, we'll go minute by minute through every episode of Charmed, giving you all the details and diving into the magic, the drama, and everything in between.
That's right. Each week we're going to break down one episode of Charmed, and today we're reviewing Season 1, Episode 5, The Dream Sorcerer.
But before we get started, just a quick reminder, follow us on social media, subscribe to the podcast, and leave a review if you're enjoying a deep dive.
We start out at Quake. Phoebe is walking through, and two guys are walking up to her. They are hitting on her. The first guy says, "Are your parents terrorists? Because, baby, you're the bomb."
I love the 90s pickup lines. I really do.
That is embarrassing. Sir, are you not embarrassed? But yes, they are hitting on her. Which, like, spoiler alert, this is before they do the spell. So, like, why this is happening, I don't know. But
I mean, it is Phoebe.
True, I guess. The second guy says, "When you fell from heaven, did it hurt? Because I know an angel when I see one." And Phoebe says, "I'm no angel, but I am a witch. Don't tell my sisters I told you." She walks over to Prue and Piper, who are sitting at a table, and asks what they're staring at. And Prue says that a couple at the bar have been going at it for almost an hour. They're making out. Phoebe says, "Oh, hello, I can't even look." And Piper complains that she hates being single. The waitress walks up and says that she has a special delivery. The sisters greet her as Sky. Apparently the sisters are very friendly with her. She places a glass of wine in front of Prue. Prue says that she didn't order it, and Sky tells her that she has a secret admirer, and he ordered it. She points to a man in the corner. He is sitting in a wheelchair, and Piper asks who that is. Sky tells her that she doesn't know, she's just following the orders, and that he has been eyeing Prue all night. Prue tells Sky to tell him thank you. She's very flattered, but she's seeing someone else. And so Sky says yes. She goes to take it back, and the sisters kind of ask if that means that she's going to get serious with Andy, because she hasn't really done that before.
Mm-hmm. She's been on the fence about it.
Yes. So Prue says that she's been thinking about a lot of things, and we cut over to the guy as Sky walks up to him. He asks why she didn't want the drink, and she says that she's flattered, but she's just seeing someone else. He doesn't believe her, and that was my opinion, at least.
Well, yeah, because he was like, "Sure she is."
It, like, panned down to the wheelchair.
Yeah.
And then he was like, "Sure she is." And then asks about her and says, "Maybe you'd like to have a drink with me." And she says, "That's really sweet of you, but I'm not allowed to date the customers."
And I didn't really care for how, like, I felt like as soon as she seen that he was in a wheelchair, she was, like, very judgy about that. And I didn't care for that.
I felt the same way, because it, like, panned immediately to the wheelchair.
Mm-hmm. And he's not a bad-looking guy at all.
No. And so it felt like cheap. Like, you can say, "I don't want to date you," without being like, "I don't want to date you because you're in a wheelchair."
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
So that felt cheap and not great. A little ableist, not great.
Yeah.
We cut to Sky's apartment. She sets her alarm clock. I think it's 1:10 in the morning or something like that. And she goes to sleep. Then we see the alarm clock skip to 2:10. And there is a man, a gloved man. And we hear, "Hello, Sky." And the guy from the bar is there. Sky wakes up. She is very shocked, and the guy covers her mouth. We know him as the Dream Sorcerer. He says, "You're in my world now, Sky." And he turns her room turns into her dream. It's all red. There's clouds in the sky. Kind of looks like they're on top of a building roof, and she's wearing an evening dress. He tells her that she looks beautiful in that dress. He says, "I knew you would." Sky says that she doesn't understand, and he says, it's your dream, but it's my fantasy. She asks where she is, and he laughs and says, you're dreaming, I'm visiting. Sky says, you're in my dream, and he says, but I can make it mine. And Sky's really confused that he can walk. And he says that in dreams, he can do anything. He can dance, he can alter the dreams, and he can kill her. And Sky is scared. She says, no, please. She says, please don't hurt me. He like kind of mocks her. Mm-hmm. And what did you think about her begging for her life? I know we've commented on the victims begging for their lives.
So I do feel that the acting was a lot better in this episode when it came to the victims of the, villain. Like, her acting was definitely better, and you can see it mm-hmm. instead of just being words and no actions, because she does try to get away from him, and he pulls her back, and he's like, no, I've got control over you. So that kind of explained, why she wasn't fighting as much as one would.
Yeah.
So
it definitely gave me like a Criminal Minds vibe. Like, I was so creeped out by this guy. Like, I did not like as he was like mocking her and like, talking to her, like the way he was talking to her, like made me feel like icky.
Yes. So I did not care for his acting throughout the episode. His acting, I felt like it was off. Like, it didn't really go with the actions of what he was doing at that time. It was strange.
Understood. As he says sweet dreams, he pushes her off the edge of the building, and then we cut to credits.
And like, his laugh that he did, like, why was it so, I don't know, it was so cringy. Like, I don't understand, like, why did he did like a laugh scream.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was very out of place. Obviously, he's unhinged.
Yes.
But, like, what was the purpose of that specifically?
I don't know, man. He's
unhinged.
He's just a crazy man. He's a serial killer. The next day, we're in Sky's apartment. She is lying dead on her bed, and Morris and Andy are there. Morris says her name is Sky Russell, early 20s. She's a waitress at Quake. Andy says that every bone in her body has been crushed. Morris says the coroner said that it's as if she's fallen off of a 20-story building. And Andy tells him that they're in a closed apartment on the ground floor and the body hasn't been moved. And as he says this, the scene pans to him walking in front of a window. But he's not on the ground floor. Like, it's clear, they're clearly like very high up. And
I did not notice that when watching. So I'm going to have to start paying more attention to the background details.
Like, on a ground floor building, you would see like street Cars. Signs, trees, like anything.
People walking.
And you see like a skyscraper. And I don't know who edited that, but like, that guy probably should have got written up.
Do better next time.
Yeah, really. At the manor, Piper's watching an exercise video, and I think it's like a Pilates or like a step class or something back in the 90s,
It's very relatable.
Yes.
Very relatable.
Yes. And Prue is in there with her. And Piper says, I give up 2 weeks and nothing strengthened but my temper. Prue says, here's the problem. You didn't read the fine print. See, it says right here, $19.95 for the video and $20,000 for the plastic surgeon. Piper says, well, it's worked. She's the most desired female in America. What every man wants. Prue says, that woman? Of course men want her. Men are not different from women. We all want what we can't have, which is why we need to stop thinking about what men want and start thinking about what we want in a man. Phoebe walks in and says, tons of fun, lots of heat, and no strings attached. That's what I want.
And what I find interesting is that she's eating a bowl of cereal in this scene right here. But I've also noticed in past episodes, she's eating a lot. Mm-hmm. And I find that interesting considering Piper is the chef.
Yeah.
So I feel like the roles should be reversed, but I find it funny that it's Phoebe that is always eating, has the eating scenes,
Yes.
and not Piper.
Yeah. Piper says, I know this may not sound very PC, but I want romance. Long, slow kisses, late night talks, candlelights. I love love. I'd take what Prue has in a flat second. And Prue tells her that then she'd have to deal with the family secret, which isn't exactly normal. At the police station, we see Morris and Andy sitting at their desks, and Andy asks about the coroner's report. Morris says that Sky Russell died of massive internal hemorrhaging. Her body literally imploded upon itself. Andy asks if he's ever seen anything like that before, and Morris said only on jumpers. Their bodies are usually found on sidewalks. So Andy says there wasn't any sign of external damage consistent with any type of fall. In fact, there's not a scratch on her. So they start positing like whether or not the body was moved. The front door was locked and bolted. So what happened? They decided it had to have been murder. And then we cut to Quake, and Piper hands the guy a meal, and it is gross. Chicken with rice and vegetables, just the way he likes it. Well done chicken, light oil vegetables, and dry steamed rice. That does not sound appetizing to me. That sounds like something I would make myself if I was like trying to go on a diet and wanted to feel bad about it.
That's good.
That does not sound delicious. And Phoebe asks why Piper is the one doing that, and Piper says that Sky didn't show up for her shift. Wonder why.
Which I also find interesting that throughout the episode, it's never revealed to the girls that
Sky
was murdered.
Yes. Yeah. Which, like, Andy knows that she worked at Quake, so maybe give him a call.
Yeah,
you know?
But it doesn't, I mean, it's not out there.
Yes. Phoebe tells Piper that she found a spell, how to attract a lover. Piper is very on the fence about it at first. She's like, no, we're not casting any spells. We're not going to do any personal gain. No way. But Phoebe tells her that they can reverse it anytime they want. So she says, I'm not talking about marriage here. We have our 30s to freak out about that. This spell is about having a good time.
I thought that was funny how she was like, we have until our 30s.
Yes.
Like, that's funny.
Yes. Piper says, I admit it's tempting. The dating scene can be a little frustrating, but bringing men into our life through a spell, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that a bit desperate? And Phoebe says, no, how is asking for what you want being desperate? I say it's not. I say it's empowering. Besides, the Book of Shadows says we can reverse the spell at any time. But what do you think? Do you think it's desperate or empowering?
I would say it's a little desperate. I'm not sure that would make me feel empowering.
I also think it's desperate.
Yeah. Definitely. But you know, others may disagree. Yeah. Let us know.
Let us know if you think it's desperate or empowering. So at the manor, Piper is in the kitchen cutting up some herbs when Prue walks in. Piper is a little stunned to see her because she thought she was out with Andy. And she is a little, caught in the act because they're in the process of doing the spell. And Phoebe walks in saying, the spell calls for cayenne pepper, not black pepper. And then she says, oops, did I say spell? I meant recipe. She says, we are so busted, aren't we?
Which she says that a lot.
Yes.
I don't know if you've noticed that, but she does say that a lot.
Yes. Prue asks what spell they're casting. And Piper says, I realized today that Phoebe may have stumbled onto something that actually makes sense. All the spells are in this book for a reason, right? And I think that this spell could be a harmless opportunity for us to test our powers. Really get a handle on them. I mean, why else would it say that we can reverse it at any time? All I want is someone special in my life, and this spell provides that exactly.
I love how Prue was like, now I'm really worried.
Yes.
Because Phoebe had a good idea.
Yes. I like how Piper says all this and doesn't tell Prue what she's actually doing. That's a direct quote from the show. Mm-hmm. And then Phoebe says, I can translate.
I know.
Because she doesn't say what spell they're about to cast. And then we don't hear Phoebe translate it either. So we don't really know what the spell is because it's just a time lapse. And then we hear Prue say, "You've got to be kidding." Piper says that they were hoping she would join them, which I don't know why, because she has Andy, so she doesn't need to. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make any sense. But Prue says she has enough complications in her life, and they are on their own.
I like how Prue was like, you guys just do it.
Yeah.
Like, I give you my permission, whereas she's always been anti-use your magic.
Yes.
So I thought that was kind of funny.
Yes. Prue tells them to be careful what they wish for. And then we cut to the attic. Phoebe and Piper have everything set up on the table to do the spell. And Phoebe asks if Piper wants to go first. And Piper tells her to go first instead. But Phoebe snatches the paper out of Piper's hand and starts reading Piper's paper. She says, "So you want a man who is single, smart, and endowed?"
I mean, don't we all?
And Piper says, "Employed."
That too.
She says, "Oh, sorry, employed. A man who loves sleeping in on Sunday, sunset bike rides, cuddling by a roaring fire, and late night talks. A man who loves love as much as you do. Wow, you are romantic." And she's like laughing through the whole thing and making fun of her.
Like, don't judge her.
She says, Piper says, "Yep, your turn." She rips her paper out and she says, "You want the sexy silent type that finds you driving through town on the back of a Harley at 3 o'clock in the morning. A man who appreciates scented candles, body oils, and Italian sheets." And Phoebe takes her paper back and she says, "He's about hunger and lust and danger. And even though you know all this, even though you know you'll never meet his friends or share a holiday meal with your family, you still can't stay away. And he recycles."
She does that in a voice, and like she's mocking herself. And I love that she did that. I love how they're like acting like teenagers in this situation. Like they're taking it serious, but at the same time, I feel like clearly they are not.
Yes.
And I find that very funny.
Yes. Piper makes a joke about the fact that he recycles. And Phoebe says, "And I think it goes without saying that we both want a man who is well employed." Piper reads the spell and she says, "This is the spell we have to say." Phoebe says, "Yes, we're lucky. If we were men looking for women, the spell requires putting a piece of honey cake in a sweaty armpit for a whole day." So the spell is, "I conjure thee, I'm the queen, you're the bee. As I desire, so shall it be." And they repeat that. I kind of like the spell because it's so like innocent.
Yes, and it flows.
Yes. But I really liked that, they're acting like teenagers. The spell is pretty juvenile.
Yes.
Like, I think the whole thing just kind of went together in like a really nice way.
Yeah, it was very smooth.
Yes. Phoebe asked if it worked, and Piper says the big spells usually require the 3 of them. Do you really think this is a big spell,
I
Piper?
know, right? Yes. And in this scene, you see what looks like a reddish, like, cloud that kind of shows up and then it evaporates.
Yeah. The phone rings and they run downstairs. Prue's on the phone. Phoebe asks if it's for her.
Which I found that very funny because why would it be for her? Like immediately is like, "Is it for me? Is it for me?" As if the spell had immediately worked. And who would it have been?
Right.
So I thought that was pretty funny.
It is the Dream Sorcerer, and he's talking to Prue, and he says, "We didn't actually meet. I sent you a glass of Chardonnay, and you sent it back. I was wondering if maybe you'd like to go out sometime." And Prue says, "Oh, look, as I told the waitress, I'm just not available. How did you get my number? My name?" Literally, how? I would like to know, actually.
Yeah. And then he just
hangs up. Yeah, because he's the sketchiest serial killer on earth.
I mean, if you're going to be a serial killer, You're going to do your research, so, you know.
But, like, I want to know why he's so invested in Prue.
Because she rejected him.
Yeah, but why did he pick her in the first place? It's so weird. Yeah. And then he immediately just set his sights on Skye. Like, it just makes no sense. Like, you just want to murder people, I guess. Whatever. The girls ask who it was, and Prue tells them it was the guy from Quake who sent her a drink, and tells them that he asked her out again. Phoebe says that she's going to Quake to see if her spell worked, and asks if the girls want to go. Piper says that she'll pass, and Prue says that she's going to go upstairs and take a bath. In the bathroom, Prue is lying in the bath, and I immediately knew that she was going to fall asleep.
Yeah, of course. How many people take a bath with the lights out, candles going, I think maybe some music in the background?
Yeah. At night. I was like, that is taking a nap.
Yes, we forethought that.
Yes. But we go into her dream, and the Dream Sorcerer is there. He says, "Hello, Prue," and she wakes up and says, "Who the hell?" He finishes her sentence saying, "Am I? And how did I get in? She says, "I don't care, just get..." And he finishes her sentence again and says, "Out of the bathroom." He and Prue at the same time shout, "Piper, help me." And he says, "Scream all you want, no one can help you." She says, "How did you know?" He asks, what are you thinking and know what you're going to say?" He said, I'm in your conscious. I know your every thought and desire." She asks who he is, and he says, "I'm the man of your dreams." Prue says that he's not real and he doesn't exist. And the Dream Sorcerer says that is what her mother used to say, isn't it? Every night before you went to sleep. Prue keeps repeating that he's not real and he doesn't exist. As the Dream Sorcerer says, as she tucked you in, she'd say if you saw any monsters, to tell yourself they weren't real, that they didn't exist, because I'm going to love you to death. The Dream Sorcerer gets a sponge and he rubs it on her back so hard that it makes her bleed, which I don't really understand.
So I agree with that. It didn't make sense because, one, it reminded me of iodine, not blood.
Probably was.
And it didn't make sense with how much, because she winds up with scratches on her shoulder.
Yes.
And the graphics of that, they could have done better with how much blood that was supposedly on the rag. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe it's because it was mixed with water. Yeah. And it made it look worse than it was, but it just didn't make sense. Her injury looked...
But it didn't seem like he scratched her. It seemed like the sponge scratched her. Yeah. But the sponge is not sharp.
But so I did notice that when he was washing her, he did scrunch the sponge. Yeah. So as if he was going to scratch. Yeah. I noticed
But then I feel like it would just rub your skin raw. It wouldn't leave 3 sharp, you know what I mean?
It wouldn't leave actual scratches or that much blood. So I felt like that was a little odd. Yeah. And that she was clearly, because again, it shows that she has scratches, and she was in pain. Mm-hmm. So I felt like with how much pain she was showing, it should have been worse than what the episode shows.
Yeah, it just didn't really add up, I think. Yeah. But he next pushes her head under the water. Piper knocks on the door and Prue wakes up. I don't really understand how her pushing her head under the water doesn't wake her up. I don't really understand the dynamics, I guess.
So him pushing her under the water was his method of killing her in her dream. Okay. So it was happening in her dream and in real life. So because she was still asleep, she couldn't get out of that.
But then Piper knocking on the door wakes her up.
Because it was an outside source.
Okay.
That's the way I took it.
Okay.
Because he was interrupted.
Okay.
Whereas he's in control of her being drowned, not the outside source. That's how I took it.
Understood. Okay. Understood. Piper asks if Prue is okay and says that she was yelling. Prue says that she just had a really bad thing.
Which I thought was an interesting choice of words. Why not just say a bad dream?
Yeah. Prue says she's okay now and tells her to go back to bed. Why doesn't she ask her to look at her shoulder?
Yeah.
Because she gets up and immediately looks at her shoulder and sees the scratch marks.
Mm-hmm. But she was also confused about what happened too, because that was the first time it happened to her. And I think I would be in that position too. Like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
Like, do I want to tell someone, or was it all in my head? But then that's when she noticed the scratches. So why not?
Yeah, but like, you have a dream and you wet yourself in your dream, and so you wet yourself in real life. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If you get really bad hurt in your dream, and then you get really bad hurt in real life, I feel like even if somebody didn't do that to you, if, you know, you hit your shoulder on the faucet, I feel like I would still investigate and see if I really do have a bruise. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a natural following.
Mm-hmm. I get that.
You know? Like, my shoulder hurts.
You're going to investigate, like, what did I do?
Yeah. You know? So I feel like that would have been natural, but especially because that's the first thing she does as soon as Piper leaves. But she looks in the mirror. She does see the scratches. And it is like 3 long scratches, like as if he took his fingernails.
3 or 4. I think mine showed 4.
Yeah, maybe.
It's 3 or 4. I'm not sure.
But it's like he used his fingernails.
Yeah, but it also looked, again, it wasn't bloody.
Right.
It almost looked as if it was like a rug burn, you know, like he just, like scratches.
Yeah.
But not, the skin did not look broken.
No. To me, it kind of looked like scabbed, like it was already scabbed over.
Yeah.
Like it was dark, so it wasn't like fresh. The next day in the manor kitchen, Prue asks Piper if she remembers what Mom used to say about nightmares. Piper says that Mom told them that if we saw any monsters to tell them to go away and that they didn't exist. It always worked, too. Prue says, well, not this time. He knew about Mom. He knew what she told us. How did he know that? And what about the marks on my back? Piper, they were there, and now they've disappeared. I don't know how, and I don't know why, but they were definitely there.
And maybe that's why it looked like they were scabbed over, was because they were already in the healing process.
Yeah, like they were disappearing.
Which I also found interesting still.
Yeah.
Like, because Sky's injuries were still there after she died. So why would her scratches be gone?
Right.
Like, that didn't quite make sense to me.
Yeah. Piper asks how many hours she worked this week, 60 or 70. Week numbers, Prue. I work more than that. Week numbers. And she says, what are you doing today on a Saturday, no less? Listen, work never stops just because it's Saturday. Work every day of the week.
Boss babe over here. Not just Prue.
Prue says, the auction starts on Monday and the shipment arrived 3 days late. And you're changing the subject. You don't believe me. Piper tells her that she believes that she thinks she saw the marks on her back. And she says, but I'm watching you down your 3rd cup of coffee. And we're talking about a nightmare you had while you were asleep in the tub. So isn't it possible that the exhaustion made you see those marks and not some dream guy? Prue tells her no. She says, he was in my dream and it was real. Piper asks why she didn't use her powers to help her, move him away. I also want to know.
Did you notice that she didn't ever make a connection that that's the same guy that was in the restaurant?
Right.
Like, not once is it acknowledged that she knew that was the same guy. Because they seen him at the restaurant, but I did notice that there's no acknowledgement of her realizing that was him.
Yeah, true. But I also would like to know why she doesn't use her powers. She doesn't even try.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if it was more of a fear factor.
Yeah.
Like, she didn't understand what was going on, and then it just didn't...
But, like, for a majority of it, she doesn't even make eye contact with him. Like, she doesn't even look at him. And I understand, like, she's scared because it's a nightmare. But, like, I feel like that's just out of character for Prue.
And it could be because he does mention that he has control over her. So maybe that was another thing. But I do agree, she does not try using her powers.
Yeah. In the kitchen, a shirtless man enters. He is pretty handsome. And he goes to the fridge and gets a bottle of milk out and drinks all of it.
From the carton, okay?
Yes.
First of all, if anyone were to do that and I caught them in my household, I'm going to bop them on the back of the head because that is not okay. That's gross, okay? Whether it is almost empty or not, I don't care. That's gross. And also, why was he drinking it the way he was drinking? Like, it was running down his chin, on his bare chest. Like maybe they were trying to get a sexy vibe, but that was not sexy.
Because it was milk. It's going to smell.
It was just... No, it was not okay.
Oh, gosh. His name is Hans, and he is there for Phoebe because their spell worked.
Boy, does it.
Yes. Phoebe says that they had safe sex, a lot of safe sex. Piper says, ew.
And I love how every time Prue or Piper's sex life comes up, I love how every time Prue or Phoebe's sex life comes up, that Piper always says ew or gross, almost like she's a prude in a way. And it just cracks me up because she's like, no, like she knows that that's happening.
Yes.
Like, come on. And I get that you don't want to discuss that with your sisters or whatnot, but you know, you need that person.
Yes.
So I always find it funny when she says ew or gross.
And before Hans leaves, he says, oops, almost forgot. And he puts the empty bottle in the recycling bin.
I know, he like makes eye contact with Phoebe, and I think he even like wiggled it or was like, and then dropped it in like, be proud of me.
Yeah. Because he recycles.
Yes.
At Quake with Phoebe and Piper, Phoebe is telling Piper that the spell worked. Piper says, a little louder, Phoebes. I don't think Oakland heard. Phoebe said, well, it did. Hans doesn't go to bars. He's never been to Quake. But last night, he's on his way back from his acting class when, bam, flat tire on his motorcycle right across the street from Quake. So he comes in to use the payphone, and who should he bump into but into me, exiting the ladies' room. Piper says, Phoebe, you threw his clothes all over the house. That's not a spell working, that's hormones. Phoebe says that she really likes him. It's not like that. He's really cool, and he likes her too. Piper hands Mr. Manford his really gross chicken, rice, and veggies. Ew. And he tells her to call him Jack and tells her that she is beautiful. She laughs and asks if he's been drinking. Me too. He tells her not to go and says that he really wants to get to know her and asks her to have dinner with him. She walks over to a phone near the bar and a guy stands behind her. She calls Prue and the guy behind her tells her not to have dinner with that guy because she should fly to Paris with him.
Which I got like a creep factor on that. Like, why are you up in my business and can't you clearly see that I'm on the phone? Like, why are you interrupting me? Yes. I don't know. That's just how I felt.
Yes. At Prue's office, Prue is asking Piper if she's really going to go on a date with that Jack guy. And Rex comes in and asks if she is finished with the Cromwell miniatures, whatever that means. I don't know. I'm not a museum person. And she says no, she's still cataloging the Rembrandt sketches. And he tells her to set them aside because the Ernest Hemingway letters are now first on the block. And the delivery guy brings in like 5 boxes.
Yeah, they were on dollies.
Stuff for her to go through.
And Rex was even bringing in boxes at that time too.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute. Why can't you help me with this?
Yeah, so Prue tells Piper that she's going to be there all night. In the manor foyer, Phoebe and Piper are there. Piper is telling Phoebe that Jack stayed through the entire lunch shift, talked her ear off, had her laughing at all his stories, and somehow convinced her to have coffee with him. Phoebe says that Hans and her are going dancing at the rave. She tells Piper that her and Jack should come. Piper says, well, if our dinner date lasts as long as our coffee date, we wouldn't make it there until closing. Phoebe suggests that they all meet back at the house and says that it has all worked out so great. We cut to the Dream Lab, and Andy and Morris are there. Morris says, so this is a dream lab. They actually pay people to sleep. Have you ever had a sleep study done?
I have not, but my husband has, and I've got a few friends that have had them as well. Have you?
They suggest that I do one, but I have not done one. I'm nervous, so.
Yeah, I do know that they, like, you're put in your own little room. They put little connections on you, and you have to attempt to try to sleep with everything connected.
Yeah, I think that's my fear. I have a hard enough time sleeping that I think if you disturb my very delicate balance, that I just will stay awake the whole night. And then they'll be like, okay, we got nothing. Thanks.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I don't think that it would be very fun, but for your health, you should definitely do
one. The lab tech tells them that Mr. Berman will be right with them, and Morris tells us that Berman dated the first victim, who is Julie Garrickson. Andy says it's a privately funded research facility, and Julie Garrickson worked there. She and Berman teamed together on some kind of experimental project. Berman arrives outside the room in his wheelchair, and it is the Dream Sorcerer. Dun, 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 dun. He asks how he can help the inspectors, and Morris asks if he is Whittaker Berman. He says we're conducting an investigation and they would like to ask him a few questions. Andy hands him a photograph and asks if he knows this woman, and Berman says, that's Julie Derrickson. She was my girlfriend. I was heartbroken when she... Forgive me. It's just very hard. I still miss her.
Which his acting in this scene was horrible.
Yeah.
Like, it was very emotionless and careless. Like, there was just no emotion. And if he was still heartbroken, there would have been something in his voice, and I did not like that. Like,
yeah, I agree.
He could have played it off a lot better, I feel like.
Absolutely. Andy says another woman died just like her the other night, a waitress crushed to death in her sleep. Berman says that's awful. He stutters over his words.
Yeah, and again, no emotion. He was almost dazed, or in a weird state.
Yes. Andy asks after his whereabouts the night before last. And Berman says that he was in the lab asleep. He left in the morning. Morris asks if there's any witnesses. And Berman says a night's worth of data, 2 scientists, and a lab technician. He asks if he should have them paged. And Morris tells him not to worry about it. Thank you for his time. Cut to Quake. Piper is having dinner with Jack. She says, when I get stressed, I get hives in very strange places, which is nothing compared to what happens when I panic, believe me, which was funny to me because I was like, yeah, Piper, when you panic, you freeze the whole restaurant. Yes. She makes a joke about having an ulcer. She makes a joke about having a tattoo. And she asks if there's nothing she can say to turn him off. He says there really isn't, which is kind of strange, really.
And I feel like that right there was kind of her realizing that maybe their love spell did not quite pan out the way they wanted. I think that was when she first started realizing it.
Yeah, she says, not really. Jack, you're under a... And he kisses her, and she says, spell. And she sees a guy sitting behind Jack smiling and giving her an eye. And she sees another guy standing nearby holding a glass of wine and winking at her. And she looks behind her, and another guy is holding a white rose, looking at her. And so, it
was her confirmation of the spell did not work the way they thought.
Yes. Back at the Dream Lab, the lab technicians are helping Mr. Berman into a chair. He says, give me 30 cc's of Vanderine. The text says 30 cc's, that's twice. He says, I'll be in REM sleep quicker and longer. Set the dream inducement system to level 12. The tech argues that they haven't got the results back from level 8, and Berman gets kind of forceful with him. He says, this is my dream, my experiment. Set the machine and give me the shot.
Which he, like, grabs the tech's jacket or shirt, but at the same time, I feel, to, like, make it more, aggressive, but at the same time, I feel like he could have, like, really grabbed it and, like, yanked the guy towards him to have some more emotion. But again, this guy is very emotionless. Yeah. And I don't like that about it. But in the dreams, he seems very passionate and determined.
Yes. At Buckland's, or in Prue's office, and Prue has fallen asleep at her desk, and the Dream Sorcerer is in her dream. He says, hello, Prue, we meet again. She wakes up into her dream, and she grabs the letter opener off her desk. He says, all that work, all those hours, you fell asleep at your desk. She calls out, and the walls of the office turn into blue and red clouds. He says, what do you hide from at work? Is it the pain of your past or the uncertainty of your future? Prue is stuck in her chair and says, I don't hide from anything. The Dream Sorcerer says, you can't move out of your chair, can you? And he spins her around and says, don't you want to know why? Because I don't want you to. You're powerless, Prue. And she tells him to go to hell. Me too. The Dream Sorcerer says, I, on the other hand, am the all-powerful. If you don't want to talk to me, that's fine. There's always Piper, Phoebe, or any number of young single women out there. It's an endless pool for the Dream Sorcerer. Prue argues with him that she'll stay, and the Dream Sorcerer says, it's too late. You're falling asleep. Prue says, I'm awake. And they argue for a few minutes, and then she kicks him and stabs him in the hand with a letter opener. He tells her goodnight. He grabs the chair and gets ready to push her over the edge, and then the phone rings, and Prue is back in her office. She wakes up and answers the phone, and it is Andy. She asks if she can call him back, but she thanks him for calling because he just saved her life.
Yes, downright good.
Yes. And Andy says he just wanted to hear her voice, which was so sweet.
And then her response is like, okay, bye.
Yeah, like, really.
Like, I get that she's freaked out, but she could have been like, yeah, you too, bye.
Yeah. Rex touches Prue on the shoulder, and she spins back around and nearly stabs Rex with the letter opener. And they both get freaked out because the letter opener has blood on it, and so does her hand.
Yeah.
And then we'd never get an explanation. I would love to see how she explained that to Rex.
I mean, I guess she could have been like, oh, I must have cut my hand.
Yeah.
Trying to open the box or something, Because I did think that too, like, I'm your boss.
Holding it like a weapon, happening? And there's blood all over me. Okay.
Yeah.
At the police station with Andy and Morris, Morris is arguing with Andy. He says the man is in a wheelchair. He's got no motive and he's got an alibi. So tell me again why you think Berman is our suspect. Andy says dream leaping. That's what Berman is researching at the lab. Dream leaping. The ability to project himself into someone else's dreams. Morris asks, into women's dreams and killing them? Now who's dreaming? Andy says, not just any women. Women who reject him, just like Julie Derrickson did. She broke up with him when they were driving somewhere. He got into an accident and that's why he's paralyzed. It's all there in their police report. The day after he went back to work at the lab, Julie Derrickson died suspiciously. 6 months later, 2 more women died in their sleep, crushed to death. Coincidence? You tell me. Criminal Minds much?
You're getting that vibe, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
I mean, it makes sense. He's a detective. Yes. Or inspector.
He's an inspector. It's classier, according to Prue. Morris says he would love to say it's a coincidence, but he cannot. So he says, let's go. At the manor, the front door opens and Phoebe walks in. She walks down to the foyer and notices bunches of flowers everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yes. She sees an open box of chocolates and takes one. She walks in the kitchen. There's more flowers in there. And Piper is sitting at the table drinking a coffee. Piper says that she's home early. Phoebe says, so are you. What's with all the flowers? Are you and Jack fighting already? Piper says, I wish. The flowers were all waiting on the doorstep when I returned. They're from men I barely know and men I've never met. All the flowers in here are for you. Phoebe says, oh, well, I know they're not from Hans. He wouldn't leave me alone all night. He kept touching me. And practically every guy in the bar was hitting on me. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I ditched Hans and left him at the club. So how was your date? Piper says that everything was perfect. Even her faults were perfect, but it wasn't real. Everything was because of the spell. It wasn't because of her. And that love is between two people and it can't be explained and it can't be conjured. And that what they did isn't right. Phoebe says, even our poor cat's in hell.
Which I love that it showed like all the tomcats along the window.
Yes.
Like that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I'm like,
I love that they included the cat.
I'm like, poor Kit. Kit didn't say the spell. They agree to reverse the spell, but the phone rings. And it is Prue. And she says, I fell asleep and that man from my dream tried to kill me again. I don't understand why. All I know is I'm only safe if I stay awake. If I fall asleep, I'm dead. Piper says, stay where you are. Phoebe and I will come pick you up. Prue says, I don't want to stay here another minute. I want you to look in the Book of Shadows, see if you can find anything on this guy. He calls himself the Dream Sorcerer. So they go up to the attic and look through the Book of Shadows, but there is nothing because he is not a demon. Nope. He is a man with science.
Yep, he is mortal, 100%.
Which I think it is kind of interesting that they chose to do a mortal so early in the show.
Why is that?
Because, I mean, there's so many supernatural things still to discover for them to be like, let's do a mortal with science. Yeah. You know?
And I like how they had a mortal involved in this because then it shows that it's not just supernatural beings, that it's corrupt humans as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's not wrong. I just think it's interesting that so early, like it's still season 1, episode 5 even, that they were like...
They could have chose something else.
Right.
More supernatural.
Right.
Than
still
a mortal.
Right. Still to build that lore in.
Yeah.
And then done immortal later on. But, I mean, it's not wrong. It's still fine.
Yeah.
The phone rings again. And it is Prue again. She's in her car driving. She's got the phone up to her ear. Phoebe and Piper run down the stairs to answer the phone. Prue asks if they found anything. Piper says, no, we didn't, but don't worry. You're not in this alone. Phoebe and I will help you. Prue asks how they can help when they don't even know what he is. Piper says, the most important thing right now is for you to get home safely. Prue's...
During this, in the car, you can clearly see that Prue is exhausted. Like, she's blinking slowly. She's kind of talking a little slow as well.
Yeah. Prue says, just keep talking. Don't let me fall asleep. Phoebe tells her to blast the air conditioning, crank the stereo, and roll down the windows. And I think this is so funny because when I come home from events, a lot of times it's like 2 a.m. I left my house at 6 a.m. I have worked all day long. I'm so tired. And that is like exactly what my husband says to do.
Yeah,
and
it's so very relatable.
Yeah, we were watching this episode and he goes, and that's what I say. So listen to me.
I mean, I did the same thing. Like when I would work late nights on my way home, from where I was working, it was a 20-minute drive, and I would crank the radio up and put on the cold air to keep me awake.
Yeah, my problem is like I've been so uncomfortable for so many hours that I just want to be comfortable for the ride home, you know?
You want to relax into the seat.
Yes. They suggest singing the road trip song, and I'm kind of bummed that we don't hear the road trip song.
Yeah, so we don't know what that means.
Yes, because Hans breaks in, and he is very angry. He says, you left me. How could you leave me? Ever since I met you, I can't do anything. Eat, drink, sleep. All I can do is think about you. Cut to Prue. She is almost asleep. The Dream Sorcerer appears. He says, the time is now, Prue. We are almost there.
Which, in this spot here, I did not care for how Prue reacted to hearing someone breaking in.
Right.
Like, in the process of attacking her sisters for all she knew. Like, I get that she's exhausted and that she's on the verge of sleeping, but if I'm in an exhausted state, I feel like hearing my sisters in trouble, I'm gonna come right out of that exhausted state and be more aware and want to know what the heck is going on and try to get home as fast as I can. I don't feel like I would have fallen asleep, even if I was, again, in that exhausted state. Like, I feel like my adrenaline would have kicked in, like, what the hell's going on?
That's what I said when I was watching the episode. I was like, how is she listening to that? And then she's so tired. And then she's like, what's happening? Like, where are you? What is going on? I'm like,
yeah.
No.
Like, and it's Prue for that matter. Like, Prue is the one that is all about really stepping up and making sure that her sisters are safe.
Yeah.
But then in this instant, it was not like that at all.
Yeah, like if my sister's boyfriend's breaking the door down and screaming, I am involved.
Like, even if they were to call and wake me up in the middle of the night, dead sleep, that's going to wake me up.
Yeah.
And I feel like they did that poorly.
Yeah, I agree. It kind of like cuts in and out between this scene of Hans and the girls fighting and Prue trying to fall asleep. With the girls fighting, Hans picks up a vase and throws it at them. Piper freezes him and the vase, and the girls run back to Prue. They like remember Prue, which is frustrating to me.
Yes. But I also like how when they do go and get the phone, Piper looks at Hans and like motions towards him with her hands and points and is like, stay put.
Yeah.
Don't move. Like, don't unfreeze.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty funny.
So we cut back to Prue. She's falling asleep again and she drops the phone, and the girls realize that she is asleep. They can no longer reach her. The Dream Sorcerer says, "Stay, good night, Prue." And we see the car heading for a pole as the Dream Sorcerer is laughing.
I really do feel like Prue could have tried harder.
I agree.
Like, again, I get exhaustion. I really do. But...
Okay, but like also were there not like, I don't know what they're called, but like the little strips in the road?
Like where it vibrates if you cross over. Maybe not back then.
Or maybe not. If she's on like a back road, it's possible that's like not back there, but...
Yeah.
But I also feel like, I don't know.
I mean, it doesn't show that she's, like, swerving or anything. She just drives straight into a pole.
Yeah. I just feel like she could have done more. You're right. But she does run into the pole. The front of her car is totally wrecked. And she is resting her head on the steering wheel, whispering, "I can't fall asleep. I can't fall asleep." In the hospital, Prue is on a stretcher. The doctors are rushing her down a corridor, and a nurse runs up to her. The doctor and the paramedic are talking. Prue is still whispering, "Must stay awake, must stay awake." They put her on the bed, and the doctor says, "Rests are down to 35, pulse ox is falling." The doctor says, "How can that be? Give me 500 mics of dopamine and get ready to intubate. Stay with us, Miss Hallowell." Damn, she's unconscious. The room turns into her dream, and she's still lying on the bed. Prue says, "How did I get here? I'm not..." The Dream Sorcerer says, "Asleep? Actually, you're unconscious. You fell asleep at the wheel, hit a pole. Terrible, terrible thing. Speaking of pain, you really hurt me last night." And he, like, shows her his hand to, like, gesture when she stabbed him with the letter opener.
His hand is in a glove.
Yeah, it's literally fine.
How do we know that she hurt you?
And he says, "And not just my feelings."
Or his ego.
Yeah. Prue tries to make a call, but the Dream Sorcerer says, "We are definitely out of range." And he picks up a glass of wine and says, "A little wine with your death." In the dream lab, Andy and Morris are there, and the tech says that Mr. Berman insists that he is not to be disturbed during his experiments. Andy says that he does not care at all. He says, "We want to talk to him. Wake him up." The tech says that he's heavily sedated, Andy says, get to work. And Morris says he hopes he's right about this. And Andy says, I am. Question now is not if Berman is going to kill again, but who? Your girlfriend. He's
Which
gonna kill your girlfriend.
he never finds out
No.
that it's her. I just love how sure he is of himself.
Yes.
Like his intuition is like always spot on.
Yes. In Prue's dream, Prue is wearing a very nice black evening gown. The dream sorcerer asks if she likes the dress, and Prue says, I've worn better, because she is sassy always. And the dream sorcerer picks her up off the bed, and we cut back to the hospital where Piper and Phoebe run up to the reception desk and ask where Prue is. They say she's still in trauma 1 and tell them to go to the waiting room. When the nurse walks away, they run into the trauma room.
Yeah.
Back in the dream lab, Andy is knocking on the glass and like yelling for Mr. Berman to wake up. He says, I don't care what it takes, just wake him up. And he continues to bang on the glass saying, Mr. Berman, wake up, which cracks me up. I laughed so hard watching that because they're like, he's heavily sedated. And I'm like, wake up, please.
Or the fact that there is clearly a door.
Yeah.
And he's standing where the glass is. Like he could have went in there and started like shaking him or
Ripping the tubes out.
Yeah, ripping the little sticky things off. Like
Yeah.
instead he's just banging on the glass. Wake up.
Yeah, it was so funny. In Prue's dream, you can hear Andy's voice yelling to wake up Mr. Berman. And Prue says, Andy.
I also find it funny, like how Berman takes her out of the bed and the way he carries her. Like he carries her sideways and grabs like one thigh. Like why did he carry her like that?
I have no idea.
Like he could have just, bridal carried her or I don't know. It was just a really awkward moment, I felt like.
Yeah. He is definitely a strange man. That is for sure.
He's a serial killer, so
yes.
A little strange.
Piper and Phoebe start talking to Prue, and Prue can hear them in the dream, kind of. The dream sorcerer says, they can't help you, you're mine now. Phoebe tells Piper that she's scared and asks what we do, and Piper says we don't let her give up. She says, Prue, listen to me, you've got to fight with this guy. You can do it. Use your power, Prue. Phoebe tells her, come back to us, and in the dream we hear, use your power, you can do it, Prue. And the dream sorcerer tells Prue that she's powerless. In Piper's voice, in Prue's dream, we hear, you can do it, use your power against him. And the dream sorcerer carries her over to the edge of the building. He says, shall I say good night? And then Prue says, no, let me, good night. And she finally makes eye contact with him, and she uses her power, and he flies over the edge of the building. And we cut to the dream lab, and the dream sorcerer is yelling in his sleep, and he stops, and he dies.
And the way he dies, like, the veins in his face, like, come out. He turns kind of purpley.
Yeah, it was like a fisheye effect. It was very strange.
Yeah, like, why did he do that? Because Skye did not do that. Like, her face did not have veins. She wasn't purpley.
Maybe it was all the drugs he was on to be under sedation.
Maybe. I don't know. I just thought that it was weird the way they did that. Like, he could have done the whole like gasping for air and waking up the way he did, but I didn't get why they did the makeup the way it did.
Yeah, I don't know. Andy says, I don't believe it. He's dead. And Morris says, I will never doubt you again. Yes, you will, Morris. That's okay.
Of course he will.
Prue wakes up in the hospital. The girls are glad that she's okay. And Phoebe asks about the man. Prue says that he is gone. The next day in the hospital, Piper and Phoebe bring in the flowers to
like
Prue's room.
It was an entire cart of flowers.
And Prue says, please tell me you guys are here to pick me up. Piper says, no, Dr. Black said one more day just to be sure. And Phoebe says, it wouldn't kill you to get some rest. And then she realized what she said, and then covers her mouth. And Prue says, Phoebe, it's okay. Thanks for the flowers. And Prue says, what's going on? Phoebe says, long story, not very interesting. Prue asks if that has anything to do with her lust spell. Phoebe says it does, but tells her not to worry. And they tell her that they reversed the spell last night and that the guys don't remember anything, so everything is back to normal. Andy walks in and he's carrying a red rose and some takeaway because she needs more flowers. But Andy doesn't know that, so it's okay. Andy says, afternoon, surprise. And Phoebe says, what are you looking at me for? I didn't tell him. Piper says, guilty. Come on, let's go.
Because Prue always blames
Phoebe. Yes.
It cracks me up. I mean, she is the youngest, and the youngest I do feel gets blamed for a lot of stuff because they get away with it.
Yes. The girls go to leave, and Phoebe, as they're leaving, says that she's going to raid Prue's closet. Andy says that he brought her favorite and hands her the takeaway bag and his cheeseburgers and fries. Delicious. He says, glad to see every bone in your body's not broken. Prue asks what he means, and he says, the car accident. Sure, Andy. Sure, the car accident. And then he gives Prue the rose, and we cut to credits.
Which, if you notice, that rose, I think he took from one of the flower vases.
Oh,
because
really?
I think it was Phoebe grabs a red rose off the cart and like wiggles it towards Piper. So it kind of made me wonder, did he snatch that from there or did he actually get a rose? So I thought that was pretty funny.
Interesting. So, Elizabeth, who is your witch of the week?
So I don't necessarily have a witch of the week because I feel that Phoebe and Piper's love for Prue had empowered her to primarily save herself, but in a roundabout way. Their encouragement and love for Prue saved her. So I kind of leaned towards Prue, I guess, because she was able to overcome her situation in her dreams with the help of her sisters. And they weren't dealing with a supernatural being, showing that the power of 3, even though they didn't use their spells, was still strong enough to save each other still.
Nice.
What about yours? Did you have a witch of the week?
Yeah, I said that it was obviously Prue for me, that she basically single-handedly defeated the bad guy. But I did want to give an honorable mention, an honorable witch of the week, to Andy.
Okay.
For just believing that it could be Mr. Berman, even though it did not seem like it was possible. Because, like, a regular guy, I feel like would not just believe that he was killing people in his dreams. And Andy did. He was like, I don't know how he's doing it, but he's the killer. And we have to stop him.
I think that is a good point because clearly Andy has had some type of supernatural event happen to him, or he witnessed something happening. So I feel like because of whatever that was or is, has helped him open his eyes and expand his possibilities of what is out there.
Yeah, and his intuition is just so spot on. Like, he is just so good. Like, he is, and he has, like, the perfect job for what he is as a person.
Yes, I agree.
And I love that. And so I just wanted to give an honorable to Andy, even though Prue is my witch of the week. So that is how I feel.
That's fair. That's it for today's episode of Spells and Spoilers. Thanks for hanging out with us. Don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss an episode, and follow us on Instagram at Spells and Spoilers and TikTok at Spells and Spoilers Pod for more. We'll be back next time with more supernatural fun. See you later.
Bye.